Spider-Man, spectacular. Living on the edge, fighting crowds, spinning webs, leaping from the highest ledge, she can leap above our heads. What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another YouTube video, and today we're taking a look at another Spider-Man movie, continuing the trilogy, taking a look at the Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. We did take a look at the original Spider-Man yesterday, we're now taking a look at Spider-Man 2 today, because obviously we're going through the MCU, taking a look at all the OG movies, and I think it's important to start off with the three that kickstarted it all, kickstarted superheroes coming into the mainstream, kickstarted superheroes from being this niche, nerdy little hobby to being like very widespread, very well known, and made Marvel movies like a event, something to go see, something to be excited, something to look forward to. And nothing can beat Marvel in its like 2010s era. That's when Marvel really fucking hit. That was like Marvel's true potential. But without any further delay, let's actually get into what Google has to say. So Spider-Man 2 came out in 2004. It's an action sci-fi and it's 2 hours and 7 minutes. It's 6 minutes longer than the first one and came out 2 years later. Has a 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb, a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 4.6 out of 5 on Amazon. So it's higher rated than the first one as well. You can watch this on Now TV, YouTube, Google Play, and Amazon Prime. When Peter Parker is dissatisfied with the life as he loses his job, the love of his life, Mary Jane, and his powers. Amidst all this chaos, he must fight Dr. Octopus, who threatens to destroy New York City. So, pretty much, as it says there, Peter is going through a little bit of a tough patch. The only thing he's got going for him is being Spider-Man, and even then he's not satisfied doing that. He's sick of always being hurt, always being injured, having to deal with so much shit, so much crime, so he just wants a break. He's a little bit burnt out. He needs a little bit time to rest, and especially with Mary Jane breaking up with him, the love of his life, him not doing that well in school, he's a little worried, he's a little stressed, so he takes some time out and bins being Spider-Man because he feels like the world doesn't need him, and then he finds out the world does need Spider-Man, and he tries to go back and jump into action when Dr. Octopus goes on a rampage, breaking shit, fighting shit, and, you know, the power of the sun in the palm of his hands with his new robotic arms, because he went to that lecture, and he saw it go wrong, and then he tries to jump in being Spider-Man, but his powers don't work, so he just has to run away and be a regular citizen. So he starts trying to climb walls, trying to jump buildings, swing webs, none of it's working. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's like, it's a little bit like erectile dysfunction. It works sometimes, doesn't work other times. You can never really get it right. It's like a 50-50 chance. It's like a gamble. So, as he was trying to be Spider-Man, trying to save the day and get back into the swing of things, he was still dealing with like the mental sort of issues of losing his girlfriend, losing his job, having sort of school issues. It's just a tough time for Spider-Man, and it's a lot to deal with, and it is a drain, like mentally, and I can understand that. So he has a lot to deal with, and he manages to save a train and then overcome those mental blocks to defeat Dr. Octopus and Doc Ock, whatever you want to call him, to, you know, save the day. And that is a second villain destroyed by their own machines in this trilogy. So you can start to see a little bit of a pattern. And with this coming out in 2004, this came out 1 year after I was born. So I was alive to see this one in cinemas. Yes, I would have been one, so I wouldn't have been allowed in the cinema, but I was alive at the time this was in the cinema, okay? I am 20, so, you know, I'm a big boy, I'm old, I know, shut up, but, yeah, the CGI is still pretty iffy. It's better than the first one, I will give it that, but it is still iffy. There's a lot more practical effects and a lot more sort of real costumes, which I do think is a lot better than what we have now. It just looks a lot cleaner, looks a lot nicer, and obviously is less work on the CGI part, and it just had to be that way because like the big metal arms of Dr. Octopus were puppets held by strings and shit, which I think was really fucking cool, because back when I was younger, when this was like a fucking fever dream to me because it was that fucking sick. Watching it now, it's kind of mid, not gonna lie. This was never really my favorite Spider-Man movie, I'm gonna be honest. Back in the day when I was younger, I really liked number 3, and number 1 was my second favorite, and number 2 was kind of mid. I never really liked that one, because Spider-Man wasn't really Spider-Man in that one, and I was younger, so I didn't really understand the sort of mental sort of side behind it, and the sort of Peter Parker side. I didn't give a shit for that, I just wanted to see Spider-Man. So this one was always my least favorite, because it had like the least amount of Spider-Man, the most sort of issues with Spider-Man. And Spider-Man in this one didn't really seem as cool. He didn't really seem as Spider-Man-like, because he kept fucking up, he kept sort of missing, and his powers stopped working, so he didn't seem as Spider-Man-like. So I do get why younger me didn't like this one as much, and I did continue to have that disdain for this movie going into it, and I didn't really know why I had the disdain for the second one. I just knew that the second one was my least favorite, but going back in and watching it, I kind of feel like the second one is still pretty decent. I mean, I still think it is like my least favorite out of the 3, but I don't think it's as bad as I sort of put, you know, a spin on. Like, you know, I don't think it's as bad as what I thought it was. It's still okay, and I think that they were really brave back then to tackle, like, the sort of mental side of being Spider-Man, like, how much of a mental drain it was. Again, 2004, we wasn't really talking about mental health or sort of issues that overworked, over sort of, you know, overstimulated. We didn't really talk about any of that back then, so I think this movie was a little bit ahead of its time in that aspect, but it did still manage to sort of be a really interesting Spider-Man movie, with him sort of, you know, regaining that control, regaining the sort of abilities of Spider-Man, still being a badass on top, and learning the value of Spider-Man. We had a very nice character arc, nice character growth, character development through this movie, which is really nice, and which we didn't really get in the first one, because the first one, again, was just setting up Spider-Man, him learning how to use his powers, him learning what the Spider-Man title entailed, and what his job description kind of was, taking on the Green Goblin. I don't feel like Dr. Octopus was as big as a threat as, you know, Norman Osborn was. I do think Green Goblin was still a little bit of a bigger threat, so I wasn't too thrilled with the bad guy choice. It kind of felt like a downgrade for the movie, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know, this Doc Ock just didn't feel very menacing, didn't feel very threatening, and yes, he was threatening to Peter because he was targeting people Peter liked. So it felt a little bit more suspenseful, a little bit more dramaful, because it wasn't just random people he was grabbing, and with his powers on the fritz not working properly, it did make it like a lot more suspenseful and a lot more interesting, and I quite liked that. But, you know, I can't shake the disdain that I had. Like, my inner child is still telling me that this one's the worst, and it's still telling me to hate on it, and I'm struggling to find stuff to actually say it's shit and it's not good, but I don't know, I just feel like the villain isn't as good as the first one. I'm sorry, but William Dafoe is just fucking top notch. He's great. He is like an incredible villain to have. It's just so fucking good. Like, William Dafoe cannot be beaten as Green Goblin. He is the definitive Green Goblin. I feel like we could replace Doc Ock. I feel like we could get other actors to play Doc Ock. I don't know. I just feel like nostalgia pushes him to the front of your mind, but I do feel like other people could have a shot to play Doc Ock. I feel like it's not like a character solely he plays. So, I don't, like, you know, some actors are born to play some roles, like Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman and Wolverine, Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man. There's just like some characters which can't be replaced. I feel like we could still have like another Spider-Man, we could still have another Doctor Strange, but I feel like Iron Man was kind of one and done with RDJ. Like, you know, there is like perfect castings, so I feel like, you know, this one isn't that. We can have more like Doc Ocks in the future, if we so need to. I don't know what Sony or Marvel's plan is for Doc Ock in the future. I'm genuinely unaware of that. This movie isn't one that I can rewatch over and over again. I don't think it has that rewatchability to it, unless like you do it like a long while apart. Like, I don't think this one is like a one that you can watch like every week or like every month. It's one that you gotta watch like a good 2 years apart. So I do have to give it like a 6 out of 10. I will admit the story is a lot more sort of adult and a lot more mature for some audiences, so I don't think the kiddies will like this one as much. Like I said before, it just doesn't have that sort of Spider-Man charm to it. There is a lot of other Spider-Man movies which do give you that and have less of the human side to it and the sort of like, you know, Peter Parker side. But other than that, it's a 6 out of 10 in my opinion. That was my thoughts on Spider-Man 2, so I hope you all enjoyed.